morning. Hey, things are, I don't know. They're not transparent in Fort Smith, that's for sure.
That's true. No doubt. I'm looking at these headlines here, and I know you've been on the program and you've talked about this before, but we, the show's now in a new time slot, on different affiliates, and so feel free to tell, kind of refresh everybody. This involves an FOIA lawsuit. You're involved in it against the city of Fort Smith because they've basically been sending each other emails, conducting the public's business via email and not in the open. Is that right?
That's right, Paul. It really starts before that, though. We had the same issue come up with the school board. I had FOI'd some documents, found out that they had elected the school board by this string of emails. Judge Tabor promptly granted a summary judgment telling the school board that they had violated FOIA and that not to let it happen again. Well, within several months' time, I get some documents from the city of Fort Smith and learn that they are conducting business the same way without giving notice to the public. There was a civil service commission issue that had come up, highly volatile, involving our police chief and the selection of external applicants. Long story short, they were discussing and voting by way of email discussions that the public had no notice of. Judge Mike Fitzhugh recently, January 4th, granted summary judgment for my client, Bruce Wade, and told the city that they had violated FOIA and not to let it happen again. But the problem is this isn't the first time this has come up. Fort Smith started a long string of cases back in, the early 2000s with the Harris case. I sued them personally, and the court told them, one of their things that they're claiming is that this is not a meeting. The court told them back in 2012, look, if you don't think this is a meeting, then go to the legislature. So, long story short, the city's looking at appealing this, and in fact, before they even had a meeting for the board of directors to decide whether they would appeal, the city administrator unilaterally says they're appealing. And I got a question. Under what authority does he have to waste taxpayer dollars like that without talking to the board? Or did they have another secret meeting and they knew exactly what they were doing?
So what you're saying right now, the city administrator, his name is Carl Gefkin, you're saying that they basically lose, right? There's a judgment against them, and they're saying that they're going to appeal. Is that right, or am I getting anything wrong here?
That's right. They lose. The court sends an order, and the judge says. Judge grants our summary judgment, says they violated FOIA. Judge also says, Mr. McCutcheon, your client, send us how much your client has in attorney fees. So what I do is I say, I tell the city, look, I will waive the attorney fees, which could be up to $50,000, $100,000 eventually. I'll waive all the attorney fees if you don't appeal. And before they even consider that issue, they're saying they're appealing, which is it's just crazy.
Wow. I see here today in FortSmith.com, already out a reported $31,000 in legal fees paid to the city's law firm of Daly and Wood. The decision by Gefkin is sure to run those figures even higher. So is it just what do you think? I mean, he just doesn't want to admit that they've been conducting business, in a way that's not above board here, or is there something else going on?
I think we know what happened is when this happened, a citizen went to the prosecutor, as well as I did eventually, and the prosecutor said this is illegal. But that wasn't before that the city administrator and
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everybody out there. Happy Monday. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. My name is Paul Harrell. This is Conduit News Radio. And I guess we're on week number 2 here with the new time schedule and everything else. Really excited to bring you the news of the day and the week. You know that old saying, Joe, there are no atheists in a foxhole. I wonder if that also applies to people who are on a Hawaiian island and they get a message that there's an incoming ballistic missile. I wonder if that saying also applies to them. That's my first thought this morning. My other thought centers around the Sunday talk shows where Arkansas's own Senator Tom Cotton went on Face the Nation. He went on Face the Nation to reply to this controversy. Number one, yeah, he did talk about the Hawaii false alarm or false alert or whatever when it comes to the ballistic missiles coming in. But he also was responding to his colleague, Senator Perdue. Now, I have said this for a while now. Senator Perdue and Tom Cotton, you know, their approach to immigration, trying to end the chain migration, trying to go to kind of a merit-based system is, in my opinion, I think it's been one of, Tom Cotton's best issues, and because he makes an incredible amount of sense on the issue. But this is what David Perdue said about President Donald Trump's statement concerning whether or not he actually used the word. You guys know the word, right? Used the word everybody's talking about. Perdue's quoted as saying, "The gross misrepresentation was that language was used in there that was not used, and also that the tone of that meeting was not contributory and not constructive." And this is all focused on Senator Durbin, okay, because Senator Durbin, they're saying, misquoted Donald Trump now. That's the news. So Arkansas's own Tom Cotton, he goes on Face the Nation. He gets asked a question about whether or not the president used the word. This is what Senator Tom Cotton said.
Yeah, John, I didn't hear that word either. I certainly didn't hear what Senator Durbin has said repeatedly. Senator Durbin has a history of misrepresenting what happens in White House meetings, though, so perhaps we shouldn't be surprised by that. Here's what I did hear, and here's the point.
Just sorry to interrupt. You're saying it did not happen, or you just don't recall?
I didn't hear it, and I was sitting no further away from Donald Trump than Dick Durbin was, and I know what Dick Durbin has said about the president's repeated statements is incorrect.
So is Durbin lying?
Senator Durbin has misrepresented what happened in White House meetings before, and he was corrected by Obama administration officials. Right. But here's the point, John. We have an system today that treats people based on where they're from or who they're related to, not who they are. That's not the system we need. When Senator Durbin and Senator Graham came to the Oval Office and proposed not to fix that system but to expand it, to create more quotas, more set-asides for other countries, yeah, the president reacted with pretty tough language, as he said, because we want to move to a system that treats people for who they are, not where they're from. What I'm trying to do and what Senator Perdue wants to do, what the president said he supports, is treat people for who they are. That's why we want to move to a skill-based system. So if you're a doctor or a scientist or a computer programmer, it shouldn't matter whether you come from Nigeria or Norway or any other country on this earth. Today, though, we have a system that rewards ties of blood, ties of kin, ties of clan. That's one of the most un-American immigration systems I can imagine. That's why we're trying to fix it.
All right, so that's why we're trying to fix it. It was all right. So it was a really good, I think, interview with Senator Tom Cotton. Again, he was on Face the Nation, and look, there's been a couple of things that have come up, and I'm gonna move on to some different news here in just a minute. But there's a few good things that have come from this controversy, whether or not Donald Trump said it or not or whatever. Is the fact, and I mentioned this on Friday, multiculturalism is complete malarkey. It's this idea that the left, puts out there that every idea that is presented across the globe is the same, and that's clearly not the case. If you just look at the results of the United States of America, we're clearly a better country that's than a lot of other countries, and that alone really frustrates people on the left. I don't know if it's because they feel guilty that we have it so good over here. Number two, the U.S. State Department issues travel warnings, and they say, hey, don't go to this country, or, hey, if you go to this country, just know it's a war-torn region, right? I mean, are we really going to say that immigrants from war-torn countries are better off to come here than, say, and if we're talking about economics, than to say somebody from a developed country that is, not a third-world nation? These are just facts. They make people uncomfortable, but yeah, there are, believe it or not, there are people in this country that have more than others. There are people in other countries that are doing better than other people in different and just to say that fact and say it however you want it, is driving people nuts. And here's the third thing and the last thing I'll say about this. Watching the media's reaction to the now, I guess, alleged comments, you would think that they are under the impression that President Donald Trump ran a campaign claiming he was going to be the moral standard of the country. And I don't know if you guys watched the primary, and I voted for Donald Trump, but I don't know if you watched that entire process in 2016, but that's clearly not the case here, okay? You certainly we elected a president who is very to the point and let you know what he's thinking. And one of the reasons these guys, in my opinion, in Washington can't stand him on both sides is because he is just who he is to everybody all the time, and a lot of those guys are not. A lot of those guys are maybe just like him or a lot more like him behind closed doors, but not so much the case when they, put on their little show, their little theatrics or whatnot. Anyway, wanted to give you guys an update on what happened. Senator Tom Cotton doing an excellent job on this immigration issue, really bringing some common sense ideas to the forefront. And it's interesting that you had Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham, he mentioned they're the ones coming to the president saying, we want to take these bad policies, that's obviously not what they said, but practically, we want to take these bad policies of chain migration and we want to expand them to other countries. And that's what's, contributed to this whole thing. And it also prompted President Trump over the weekend to say, hey, maybe this whole immigration deal is now dead. All right, moving on now. Interestingly enough, I kind of like I told you so moments. We have one of those here where Conduit for Action over at conduitforaction.org, they posted this on Friday. We didn't get to it on our Johnny Cash Friday edition. Headline, sadly, Conduit right again. I would encourage all of you to go check this article out because it really, really is good. And it really just shows you that the limited government approach, the small government approach, the conservative approach is best. And if they would just do the hard thing, like say no to growing government, which can be hard when every lobbyist in the state is telling you to do the complete opposite of what you told the people that you would do, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now, okay? Our whiteboard this week, for those of you that don't know, we're broadcasting visually at Facebook. It's facebook.com/Conduit News. So our whiteboard this week says we won't get fooled again. Yes, inspired by The Who. And this is kind of something that I was talking with some friends over the weekend. This seems to be really a good slogan because, if you campaign as a conservative or you kind of use the solid principles And what's funny is I noticed? You've got the mainstream media that is leftist in this state, talking about the statewide here in Arkansas, and they seem to want to paint people who just want the Republican Party principles enacted, like the conservative, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, that somehow that is far right-wing extremism, it's simply just adhering to a lot of these ideas in the Republican Party platform. But if you just would say no to growing government, we wouldn't be in this place. We wouldn't be in this position in the first place. And so you have this whiteboard again. We won't get fooled again. That's just directed at Governor Asa Hutchinson, somebody who kind of just uses what we all unite around. Let's use the Republican Party platform, the principles there as a vehicle, a tool to get limited government, to not grow government, to shrink spending, to reduce regulations, to reduce taxes in a meaningful way, not in a shell game where we attempt to try to make people think that they're getting lower taxes when in reality the government's spending more than ever and getting more money from us than ever. Yeah, we won't get fooled again. That is my hope. But this article, sadly, Conduit right again. In an August 2015 article, Brenda Vassar-Taylor warned readers of conduit4action.org any benefits to the Arkansas taxpayer of Arkansas's Obamacare Medicaid expansion would soon be behind us, meaning you have the federal government that was going to pay for everything, and now that they're not paying for 100%, and we're going to have to start coming up with our own money. Now, all of a sudden, you have people saying, well, this is not financially sustainable. Well, that's what we've been saying the whole time, and our irresponsible big government politicians asked us to ignore that we pay federal taxes. They'd say, we'll waste your federal tax dollars the way we see fit, but when we have to do our state dollar, and that's just, folks, it's irresponsible. And we are in a financial conundrum that has not been adequately reported on, and a lot of people don't understand how bad the situation is. Now, at the time, the program was 100% federally funded, plus Arkansas was siphoning off part of the free federal money by charging an insurance premium tax on each person covered. So not only were we getting 100% coverage, you have the state of Arkansas making money by charging. And that was the whole idea of the private option, right? You couldn't just expand Medicaid normally under Obamacare. We had to do it the other way. We had to do it the corporate welfare way. We had to pay insurance companies a premium. Whether you go to the doctor or not, they're going to get money. And then the state turns around and charges a tax on that money. That's unbelievable. So it keeps going here. So how did the Obama administration talk Arkansas into paying for a program primarily for able-bodied working-age adults who do not work? The answer was a free trial. All Arkansas had to do was sign up, and the federal government would pay the entire cost of the program for the first few years. To help sell the program, the Arkansas legislation included a provision that would automatically end the program before Arkansas would have to pay unless the legislature passed new legislation to extend it. But, that sounds good, right? But Governor Asa Hutchinson was hooked on the big government program. It was laced with marble rock. In 2016, Governor Hutchinson pushed passage of legislation for an unlimited extension of the program despite future costs. He changed the name of the program from the private option to Arkansas Works. And now we have to pay a part of this. Free trial's over. And in 2017, you had State Representative Josh Miller who filed a bill to stop the enrollment. Governor Asa Hutchinson opposed it, found a way to kill the bill. In the Arkansas Senate, where the governor's nephew, Senator Jim Hendren, is the Senate Majority Leader. And actually, he's trying to become the President pro temp of the Senate, by the way. He wants the support of that. He's trying to rally the troops. Does anybody think that looks bad when you have supposedly separate but equal branches of government, the executive, the legislative, the judicial, and yet the Republican Party may very well make the president of the Senate, president pro temp of the Senate, the governor's nephew. And to suggest that there's that doesn't undermine the leadership won't undermine it all there, you know what I mean? I mean, come on, blood's thicker than politics, folks. And look, I know, blood can, I get it, but this is certainly something, appearance, first of all, and that's the first thing. But number two, we also have a long record here. As the majority leader, Senator Jim Hendren has essentially just executed exactly what Governor Asa Hutchinson wants, his policies, and that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we know now. If you look at the spending increases, $600 million years over now, what will be 4 years, $600 million, $600 million in what will be 4 years, is a lot of spending increases. That's a lot of government growth. So, anyway, we got to take a break here, but check it out, because not only do you have the summary of the article in 2015, or the new article, rather, you have the reposting of the 2015 article, Economic Freedom, When to Say Enough. You got this interesting graphic here of an Arkansas license plate that says underneath it, the welfare state, and that's the truth. That's what we're becoming, folks. You could even say maybe that's what we are at this point when you look at how much we spend to run our government versus what other states around us spend. We have to take a break. Happy Monday to you. We got a great show coming up for you. Coming up at 7 o'clock, we'll be talking with Mr. Mark Moore from Arkansas, the Arkansas Neighbors Project. That's arneighbors.org, as well as a lot of other news to get to. It is an election year, and you're seeing a pivot from big government Republicans trying to convince you that they are conservative. I'll talk more about that this hour. We won't be fooled again. Back in a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works Obamacare private option, has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues, from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so last week you had a lot of activity going on at the Marble Palace, which is our word for the Capitol, and obviously you had the budget hearings. If you missed Friday's show or you missed that 7 o'clock hour on Friday, feel free to go back, check it out, because it's a lot of really good information. We really tried to tell you exactly what happened in the budget process. You had conservatives attempting to change the appropriation, the authority, the spending authority for government agencies. In some cases, the government agencies testified that they they spent $12 million last year. They had asked for 16, and then they received 30. So the governor basically recommended that they get 30 million instead of the 16 they asked for. And it's just, why would we do that? Why would we give them this money if it does come in and give them the authority to spend it on whatever they want? At 7:30, coming up in about an hour, I'm going to kind of dive back into that briefly just to let you know what a disaster that was on Thursday. It was an absolute disaster of a process. They didn't have a quorum, and yet they passed the governor's recommendation anyway with a voice vote after several attempts to record votes on motions to cut spending. Couldn't pass. Motions to accept the executive recommendation wouldn't pass either. And so they, just to get out of there, they said, we'll fight another day. And they just did a voice vote, not having a quorum of the Senate side. And the Joint Budget Committee, the House members were there, but you didn't have the Senate people there. It was just really... I'm glad it happened because it exposes the flawed process that these people are operating on down there. It is a process to protect the status quo and to stop legislators from actually being able to legislate. And that is a theme that gets repeated so often as I've been down there covering what's been going on the last several years. You just wouldn't believe how hard it really is to get the change that we've all been voting for. Also last week, you did have talk of the potential abuse of Arkansas tax credit, the homestead tax credit. Some people think it's a huge problem. Former Senator Eddie Joe Williams of Cabot said that the people claiming multiple homestead tax credits, which is like $350 or something. It's like $350, but if you have properties in different counties, there's no database to check whether or not you're taking multiple tax credits when you should only be taking one. And so people are even talking. They want to know how big the problem is because if it's a big enough problem, they want to create a statewide database so that they can police this one tax credit. What do you think's going to happen with something like that? Back in a minute.
several board members were interviewed because it's criminal violation. So they were interviewed by the Sebastian County Sheriff's Office, and it was pretty clear. I got a copy of that interview, and Mr. Gefkin is hostile to the, I think he called the, he had some derogatory name for the Freedom of Information Act, acting like people like myself are just abusing the Freedom of Information Act, that I should be held in contempt. That's kind of the tone that not only him but several of the city administrators are taking. And all I want them to do is discuss what they're discussing in secret email chains in public at their meeting. Now, here's something else that Director Law has come up with. He said to Talk Business the other day that he's going to create, that the city is busily creating a repository for emails. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't solve their FOIA problems, because unless I'm getting those emails in real time and we have notice of those emails, that's not solving his problem. Mm-hmm. And it's just crazy. I mean,
can you give our listeners an example of what is it specifically they were discussing? I'm sure it's more than one thing that the public needed to be made aware of or should have been made aware of.
Yeah, well, they were trying to dismantle they were trying to, a couple of the directors, Andre Good leading the charge, he has a close relationship with our new police chief. He was trying to give the police chief the power to hire external applicants, and the FOP was totally against that, and so that he was discussing that business on these email chains, with the other directors. First it was Lorenz, and then it spilled over to Keith Law. So once they got caught red-handed with that, and I sued them, I said, again, this is the second time recently that I've said, hey, I'll waive the attorney fees if you just don't appeal. So after we got into this, again, attorney fees are mounting up. I told them early on, I said, look, you're wrong. Look at Judge Tabor's opinion that he granted in the school board case. I mean, it was on all fours with that case. So long story short, I sent them a letter, and I said, I'll waive attorney fees up at this point. All you have to do is admit you did wrong and don't do it again.
Yes.
And danged if they didn't have another secret email meeting. I FOIA'd.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, good morning. Welcome back to the program. I saw this on, what was this? I guess over the weekend. We got a headline here from Mr. David Hughes, ArkansasOnline.com. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, no plan to call special session to consider sales tax on online purchases.
And they had another secret
subheadline
email
here, Arkansas
meeting.
lawmakers
so
lack
Fitchie
consensus
said, not
on
only
the
did
issue. Interesting. So here's the thing. There's a lot of history here that really has to – we're going to have to go through this. It starts all the way back, during the session last year, okay? There were two different bills that were trying to pass an internet sales tax. Now, one of them, admittedly, was unconstitutional. The sponsors of the bill, Governor Asa Hutchinson, was backing a bill that they knew was going to get a court challenge. Now, if you actually look at the headlines from the last couple of days, South Carolina case is actually heading to the Supreme Court on this very issue. They want to reconsider the Quill case from 30-something years ago that basically said if you don't have a physical presence in the state, then you can't. The state can't tax you. The state cannot, subject you to their authority because they don't have authority because you're not within their sovereign borders. And this was about catalog purchases. You get the mail catalog. I remember growing up, your parents would they try to figure out what I wanted for Christmas. My parents would, and so they would, I'd look through the catalog. It was like, hey, I like this, I like that, whatever. Do you remember that? That's how it was done. Well, okay, so if the catalog company doesn't have a physical presence in the state of Arkansas, then they're not subject to the tax. Now that everybody is using the internet for their purchases because of mass convenience, because it's great to have things shipped right to your house, it's also very easy to browse things online. And, sometimes you just don't need to touch or feel something in order to know if you want it, right? Sometimes you still do, by the way, and the market's going to make those decisions. But instead of leaving it up to the market, no, the only thing that people like the governor and others can see are dollar signs. And this is really, really frustrating to me. So that was the first bill. The second bill, that went around, and both of these bills failed because conservatives stood up and said, we're not going to raise the taxes on the people of Arkansas, which prompted other liberals and big government Republicans to say, oh, no, those taxes are already owed, and the people of Arkansas are tax cheats. If you go and you shop online, you now owe the use tax when it's delivered to your home. You owe the use tax, and all these Arkansans don't understand that they're supposed to voluntarily, and so then they had a bill saying, okay, you know what, we'll create a government program to collect the use tax on the citizens of Arkansas. That would mean there would be some bureaucracy. They'd probably use the DFNA, Department of Finance and Administration, to send every Arkansan a bill every year, trying to hunt down how much internet, how many purchases have you made using the internet, which I actually said make my day. I really did. I thought, I was like, okay, go for it. I don't support it, but go for it. Do you realize the political, almost used part of Donald Trump's bad word that he used. Do you realize just the political ramifications if the politicians of Arkansas had passed that bill and actually tried to figure out where they would have to know your internet habits. They'd have to know if you shopped at Amazon, or as State Representative Dan Douglas said from the House floor, whether you shop at VictoriaSecret.com or Zappos.com, wherever you shop. That's what he said he was speaking for the bill, and it's like, okay, there's some huge privacy problems at that point. So they abandoned that one as well. Shortly after the session ended in 2017, there were rumblings because we needed money. They needed more revenue generation. They have to have it because we are in we've got financial problems in this state, okay? So the governor started hearing these whispers last year. The governor's going to call a special session on the internet tax. Now, keep in mind, conservatives had rallied together and defeated the internet sales tax. To their credit, there are people that did say, no, the government does not need to raise the taxes on the people of Arkansas. But the governor was saying, no, we need to find a way to get more money from people, the internet sales tax, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward to now. Arkansas governor, no plan to call special session to consider sales tax online purchases. So now we're not having a sales tax, at least until May. The reason I say at least until May is because after May, the Republican primary is over, and Jan Morgan will know the results of Jan Morgan and Governor Asa Hutchinson and whether or not. Now, folks, honestly, this is clearly a political maneuver. He was absolutely convinced that we needed an internet sales tax last year. Now, because of his own actions, he has a primary opponent, okay? Joe, you said it best during the break, right, about he's the one that's just really bad at being a Republican, right?
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah, this is his own fault. Yeah. He's just really bad at being a Republican. That's why he has a primary opponent in Jan Morgan.
Yeah, basically what I said was this would, like, Asa's problem right now, the reason why he can't have a special session is because he's too busy prepping for Jan Morgan.
Yeah.
this wouldn't have happened if he was better at being a Republican.
Yeah.
If he had made better decisions, there wouldn't be an outcry from the people wanting someone like Jan Morgan to run.
That's exactly right. And I would just even say, if he was actually implementing limited government, the entire format of this program would be different. We convinced, the state of Arkansas was convinced that Democrats were liberals and we needed to make another choice, and we've done that, okay? Now the next battle is to convincing people that now you have Republicans who are cloaked, and this is a much harder battle. But if he were actually implementing limited government ideas, John Brummett wouldn't be writing stories about him in a positive light. They would be writing stories about how terrible real tax cuts are, how terrible less regulations are. The left would be attacking what we're doing, and instead the leftist media is supporting it. And it's if you just take a step back and look objectively, that's exactly what's going on. So, all right, no plans to call a special session at this time. It's clearly a political maneuver. Now let's address, for any of you out there, let's take this opportunity now that we've exposed that this is a political maneuver. He wanted a special session. You realize he wanted a special session so bad that he had the Municipal League of the state of Arkansas have different city councils vote on a resolution begging the Arkansas General Assembly to pass an internet sales tax. And he was behind that all. It was very weird. In some cases, you had city councils that were passing this resolution, even though the state representatives from those districts in that specific city had voted against. So the people's representative, in one instance, voted against the internet sales tax, but then the people's city councilman voted for a resolution to say, please, Arkansas General Assembly, pass an internet sales tax, which was just decided. I mean, in some cases, it was like 2 months earlier. Everything, you'd already voted, and the people had spoken and said, we're not going to pass a tax increase on the people of Arkansas. So, but let's take the arguments, right? Let's take the arguments. Number one, the argument that they say we got to have an internet sales tax is to level the playing field for brick and mortar businesses. Now, number one, let me just tell you, the market is not a level playing field. Never has been.
Never will be.
Yeah, and we don't need the government in this particular case to come in and level the playing field, because we're talking about two completely different things. A brick and mortar business is not the same as an internet business. You use completely different infrastructures. Completely, okay? You're not using city sewer, you're not using streets, you're not doing any of that. These are completely two different things. And you know what? In this country, you have the freedom to do both. There's a reason internet-only companies, though, probably don't really have brick-and-mortar presences as much as you have brick-and-mortar businesses that are trying to get in on this internet sensation, because it's amazing, right? They're completely two different things. And when you say, well, Paul, they use roads. You buy something on the internet, that it gets shipped, and, well, guess what? When you buy tires, not only do you pay the new tax that Arkansas put on you, but you also pay a federal excise tax on tires that goes to fund your roads. Okay, next. See, they just want you to think that this is, something is not equitable about this situation, but the two situations are not equal at all. Okay? They're not equal at all. You've got two completely different things here. That's the first thing. The second thing is, well, we got to do it to save brick-and-mortar businesses.
Are brick-and-mortar businesses getting part of this tax?
No.
Then how is it going to save?
That's a great question, Joe. No. How is giving more money to the government going to save brick-and-mortar businesses?
Because there are things that brick-and-mortar businesses have that I would more than happily go and get, buy it from them. But to be honest, there are things that I like to that I personally would like to purchase that brick-and-mortar businesses do not have.
Yeah.
The only way I can get them is online.
That's exactly right.
And
I'm never really going to be the guy that's going to go buy clothes on the internet.
No.
I'm going to need to try those on, make sure they fit okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I bought a couple of shirts online just because I thought they were nice shirts. But when they came in, I bought the size that I normally got, but they were too small.
Yeah.
They were just really too small. So I was like, I'm never buying shirts online again.
Yeah.
Never buying clothes online again.
So the second, or I guess the third, I don't know what point I'm on now. I've lost track. All right.
Point number 3.
let's think of the competitive nature. The brick-and-mortar businesses are going to say, and this is a classic example, brick-and-mortar businesses want to use the government to put the tax on so that they can be more competitive. That would be how they would respond to what we just said. Well, how's giving more money to the government going to save brick-and-mortar business? We're going to say, well, they're able to charge less because they don't, you're not paying the sales tax, so they can charge less. Okay.
They're not charging less. They're not.
Okay. Well, just hear me out for a second. I've talked to some businesses where they say, on large purchases, a sales tax, if you're going to buy like a really, really, really nice copy machine, okay, you could buy one from a salesman here, or you could buy one on the internet for cheaper because you do have that sales tax. Okay, so there are instances where that happens.
Well, that's
the question is, here's the question though. Does putting an internet sales tax, is that going to decrease in a significant way internet purchases, thereby saving Main Street businesses that nobody wants to go to? And the answer is no. Is 100% probably the easiest thing you can ever predict ever. Is the answer is no. For the most part, the internet, people are buying on the internet because it's convenient. They can do it, be done with it. It's over. That's why they're doing it. So let's just be clear here. The government wants to convince small business owners they need an internet sales tax because the government wants more money. But they're going to say, well, we're going to save your brick and mortar businesses. No, they're not. Let's be very clear. No, you're not. In the vast majority of cases, the answer is no. People are not going to stop shopping on the internet because you put a sales tax on there. Because the internet, and I speak from this as, I'm 33 years old, folks. That's how old I am. I'm 33 years old, and I'm telling you right now, the future, the amount of, it's only going to get worse. But there will be market provisions. The market will provide, like I just said, clothing stores probably still going, unless they come out with some really easy way to guarantee that our jeans are going to fit you the way which is going to be difficult. But hey, there's some more innovation opportunities for the online people. But there will be some stuff you want to touch and feel. But right now, most of the stuff, people just want to use the internet. You got anything else, Joe?
Well, okay, so
did I leave something out?
I think with the copier example that you used, that works really well for like businesses that make very large purchases, like buying a new copy machine, something like that. Like it works really well for that. But for the average person is not going to buy a $900 copy machine.
Correct.
For no reason. Like it doesn't make any sense. But the average person, what they're going to buy is they're going to buy clothes. They're going to buy other small items, whether it be from Best Buy or Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. But those prices don't get decreased. You're talking about that large purchases, they can, they might give you some sort of tax.
And they also have shipping to think about.
Oh, yeah. But still, like, if you go into Best Buy to buy something and buy it. So let's use, for example, a keyboard for your computer.
Okay.
Keyboard for just the most generic keyboard you can think of. Odds are, if you go online and find that exact same keyboard online from their company, like the company that's selling it, so let's say Logitech, makes excellent keyboards. Odds are you're either going to find it at the same price, maybe less, because Best Buy has to sell it to you at a upcharge to make money off of it because they get it at cost. Odds are you're probably going to be able to buy it at cost, if not just a little bit more, so that Logitech makes money off of it.
Right.
But still, for the average person, this internet sales tax is doing nothing but
making you pay more money that you could spend elsewhere in the economy.
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to help brick and mortar businesses whatsoever.
I completely agree with you, Joe.
The average person will not see their savings going to brick and mortar businesses. They will not save more money going to brick and mortar businesses because of the internet sales tax.
And the reason we point this out is we just want to point out their arguments are flawed. Brick and mortar businesses, I know you guys are struggling because of the internet, but just think about it. Giving more money to the government when they say we've got to save brick and mortar businesses, we got to save. That's not going to happen. The internet is amazing. I hate to break it to you, but that's the future. So what I would suggest is let's not rely on the government. Okay, let's rely on innovation. If you're a brick and mortar business right now and you're not trying to get in on the internet market, then I would suggest that you really need to think about it, because that's the future. You know,
if you're a brick and mortar business, my first suggestion is to do, if you can't afford to just do a full online presence where you have a store online and you can ship it out. If you can't do that right now, do the next best thing, where you can order online, put your stuff, like say, I want this object, and this object, pay for it online, have it fully funded, like fully paid through online, and then have them come pick it up.
Yeah.
That saves you from shipping it. And if it's local, like let's say I wanted to buy something from Gearhead, instead of having it shipped to my home, I could go like just pick it up and be in and out of the store, which is half the hassle, is being in the store, finding what you want, and then like buying it.
Mm-hmm.
I find it what I want in the comfort of my home, probably 9 o'clock at night, just looking through something that I want.
And real quick, we got to go to break, but the last thing I'll say is, again, if you know what you're doing on a computer and website, you could get an online store set up in like 24, 48 hours. Now, could you open a brick and mortar store in that amount of time? Not a chance. We're talking about two completely different things, okay? And want to reiterate, Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson says no special session to raise your internet taxes. And I guess we should thank Jan Morgan for that, because Jan Morgan is primarying him. And no, I'm just saying. I mean, if Jan Morgan doesn't run, maybe we get higher taxes in a special session. But at least until May, until the primary's over, and we get to see the results of who wins that, the people of Arkansas are not looking forward to higher taxes this year.
Well, there's two people to thank: one, Jan for running, and two, Asa for putting us in the situation where Jan would run.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Him just being really bad at being a Republican. Okay, we got to take a break, folks. Don't go anywhere.
What you cooking? It smells familiar.
I'm cooking something amazing, new, and different, and you're going to love it, babe.
Really? It seems like we've had this dish before.
Don't believe me? Come and taste it for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm right. This tastes just like Obamacare.
No. Actually, it's the new private option. I call this fantastic new dish Arkansas Works.
That's odd, because it looks and tastes just like Obamacare.
Why do you always have to be so critical? I'm in here cooking, trying to do something nice for the family.
Because I thought we talked about this before. I don't like Obamacare.
You just need to give it another chance.
So you admit it's the same?
No, it's different. It's Arkansas Works.
Let me ask you something. Does it smell like Obamacare?
Yes.
Does it taste like Obamacare?
I suppose so.
Are you using the same ingredients to make it as you used to make Obamacare?
Yes.
Then how is your so-called new dish, Arkansas Works, not Obamacare?
Well, let me explain, honey. You will remember, recently, I had my name legally changed at your request, right?
Yes, I know. You had it changed from Duke to Rover. I dislike the name Duke, and I think Rover sounds so much more personally responsible.
Well, now that I'm called Rover instead of Duke, I believe I can take the same recipe and ingredients and create a dish with the same smell and taste from before.
Okay.
And because of my name change, you will love it.
I'm not buying it. And I just realized the name Duke and Rover are both common names for dogs.
PHP Parody.
bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, go ahead and check out this website. This is arneighbors.org. It's a really good resource, and his name is Mark Moore. We're going to have him on the program coming up here in about 10 minutes. So it's 7:05. The program will be back on for hour number 2. This is who's coming up. We got Mr. Mark Moore from the Arkansas Neighbors Project. It's arneighbors.org. And he writes this: neighbors, our political system is broken. It's rotten from the top down. And his contention, which I'm not entirely convinced of this, but his contention is Republicans and Democrats are not going to fix it. So we'll have more on that. But specifically, what we'll be talking with Mr. Moore about is a court case he's involved with that has to do, in many cases, with this whole Democrat-Republican monopoly when it comes to, if you want to run for office and that sort of thing. You basically have to choose one or the other in many regards. And so we'll talk more about that again coming up here in just a minute with Mr. Mark Moore. I want to remind everybody, we are broadcasting on terrestrial stations across the state, but as well over at facebook.com/Conduit News. Check it out. Give us a like at facebook.com/Conduit News. But if you ever miss the program, if you ever miss the first hour, I was hearing from some people who were saying, hey, look, we're not on, or I'm not able to listen to the first hour because I'm not up. Well, you can listen to the first hour very easily by going to facebook.com/Conduit News and checking out the video that'll be available at 8 o'clock every day. The whole broadcast available at 8 o'clock every day. And it is Martin Luther King Day today, by the way. Martin Luther King Day, and so it's a holiday for a lot of folks. Matter of fact, I want to give a shout-out to Wayne. Wayne on Facebook used to listen every day when we were doing our afternoon broadcast, every single day. Wayne drives a school bus, and so he's only able to listen to like 5 minutes of the program now every day, but then he has to go. But on Facebook, Wayne writes this: good morning, Paul and friends. No school today, so I get to listen. Well, Wayne, I appreciate you listening. I'm sorry that the schedule's not working out for you as well. But, hey, just take my advice. Just go to the Facebook page. You can check it out anytime you want. Or we have the podcast as well. You can find out more about that at conduitnews.com. If you just want the audio only, iTunes or SoundCloud, we've got that up. Matter of fact, Joe will upload this hour coming up here in just a little bit. So the reason I say all that is we want to make it very easy for you to get the content of this program, whether you hear it live or not. We want it to be relevant, and matter of fact, it's basically relevant all day. Okay, so let's see, what else do we have here? All right, this story is pretty fascinating to me. You have a plan to fix the prison problem. You heard Senator Brian King on the program yesterday talking about, or not yesterday, last week, talking about the crime problem we have. And we do have a crime problem, a big crime problem. So the plan to fund Arkansas's prisons last week, kind of more of a budget update, it drew a cool reaction from lawmakers. Lawmakers say that they want more funding for the corrections. They want to hire more officers and things like that because they realize we have a crime problem. I'm going to have more on that next hour as well, because there's a couple of stories. There's one in particular that I covered. That's a friend of a friend who was victimized by somebody who should have never been let out of jail in the first place. Okay? Why do we have a crime problem? Because the government is abdicating the responsibilities that we all agree it should do, and instead growing welfare programs for able-to-work adults, and that costs money, folks.
1013 FM News Talk, KBTM Jonesboro. Loud and crystal clear for Northeast Arkansas with news and talk.
Document, and they had another secret email meeting. So Judge Fitzhugh said, not only did you violate FOIA when you were discussing the civil service, you also violated FOIA when you were even discussing this settlement offer. It's just arrogant.
Wow.
And they've been grinding this axe for years now, They don't want to accept that the Supreme Court has decided email issues, that the Attorney General has. Robert Steinbuck has weighed in on this matter, clearly says that this is a violation of FOIA. 2 circuit judges in Fort Smith now, and the prosecutor on 2 separate occasions. So there's only one lawyer that wants to fight this battle and waste the taxpayers' money, and that's the one who's getting paid hundreds of, literally, he'll make $100,000 on this. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think that's right. Number one, I think we need to look at the way we're doing business in these cities. Hire somebody. I could go out and find you 10 lawyers who would take this entire case for the money they've already spent. But we're going to pay our city attorney close to $100,000 if this goes forward. Not to mention what they're going to end up paying me. I've never collected 1 penny, Paul, for attorney fees. Because it's not about attorney fees. It's about open government and doing the right thing and understanding that if we don't have open government, our republic is and frankly, hopefully there's some legislators listening. After 2018, I'm going to suggest, after the November 2018, I'm going to suggest that we either pass an initiative, or legislators, if they have the guts to do it, where they have to do their business transparently also, that they can't have all these secret meetings where the public doesn't understand why all this legislation's getting passed. Mm-hmm. And so I think FOIA ought to apply to state legislators also.
Oh, I do too. And of course, their email correspondence, stuff like that, it doesn't. And so that's that's a very good thing. They would obviously be against that because it would, in their minds, weaken the stat. It would threaten the status quo. It would threaten actual real change and real transparency. Most of them, unfortunately, they go down there. They don't even want their votes recorded. They go down there trying to go on record the least amount of times possible. It's pretty frustrating. So we're talking with Joey McCutcheon. He's a Fort Smith attorney. He's definitely a huge fan of our great FOIA law, Freedom of Information Act. Can we real quick, Carl Gefkin, so this city administrator of Fort Smith, I guess the city of Fort Smith's been in the news a whole lot last year. I mean, it was in the news a lot, not just with this FOIA stuff, but also concerning the General Improvement Fund grant that Jake Files gave the city of Fort Smith to then give one of his employees. And, you can find quotes of this, city administrator, Carl Gefkin, talking about, hey, I didn't realize, it seems to say he didn't really realize what was going on at the time. So, I mean, is there more stuff to discover about what's really going on within the inner workings of the city of Fort Smith? It seems like that there is, especially if you go and you read that FBI affidavit, for a search warrant against Senator Jake Files.
Yeah, there clearly is. This River Valley Sports Complex, there were multiple transgressions by the former city administrator. We've got a deputy city administrator, Jeff Dingman, who is right. He's been involved in all these decisions. They gave Jake Files this sweetheart deal on this River Valley Sports Complex. He ended up stealing money from our General Improvement Fund. But these same directors were a part of that. And they cut a sweetheart deal with him, did not make him get insurance. And we're seeing that there's a bulldozer company who's made $300,000. The city's looking at that. What are they going to do on that? But, Jake Files on this, by the way, on a new point, FBI, as early as last week, was interviewing witnesses regarding this stolen gift money, this $20,000 that was stolen. So, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Really?
The senator's going to be.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's hour number 2. My name is Paul. Welcome. My name is Paul Harrell. This is Conduit News Radio. Thanks so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. You found it. We are building a liberty machine, and we want you to be a part of that. Now, one of the ways to do it. I mean, sometimes among the the political elite, the Little Rock establishment, the Marble Palace, the liberty machine and the construction of this is not very popular. But don't let that discourage you, because there's way, way, way more of us than there are of them. And you just need to be telling everybody you know about this particular program. You need to be telling everybody in your sphere of influence, at the water cooler, wherever you guys are off to work. You guys are the backbone of the Arkansas economy. And I just want you to know our government here in Arkansas needs to be much more transparent, and we need to have politicians that actually implement the policies they campaign on and not come back to us with excuses after they get elected about why. You just don't understand it's so hard it can't be done. All right? Hey, joining us now, I want to welcome back to the program a friend of mine. His name is Mr. Mark Moore, and he has a little project called the Arkansas Neighbors Project. You can find out more at the website arneighbors.org. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good of you to have me on again. I'm on pins and needles, waiting for the judge, Judge Moody, federal judge in Little Rock there, to issue his formal ruling on our case. And I don't know, Paul, do you want to give a rundown of the case to sort of to bring the readers up, listeners where we are?
The last time I talked to you was before Christmas, and we were pretty confident that the judge was going to rule in your favor, and that hasn't happened yet. But tell us, you brought a lawsuit because of why?
Well, in 2012, I have found that the Republicans and the Democrats can be bipartisan, okay? And, of course, that's not the same thing as nonpartisan. Being bipartisan is not the same thing as nonpartisan. George Carlin, the late, great George Carlin, had it right. Sometimes bipartisan means a larger than usual deception is being planned.
Wow.
And what they decided was, like you said in your intro, you're not very popular about the Marble Palace. I'm not very popular either, because I think independents should have equal access to the ballot with Republicans and Democrats. And that's a very unpopular idea. And in 2012, I ran for the state legislature. We decided at the last minute to go down and file and do it. And then I left the state. So I really only campaigned for a couple of months, still got 39% of the vote. If I had campaigned all summer, I might have messed up and won, Paul. So it cost my family some money. But at any rate, I thought, well, maybe I want to do it again. And lo and behold, they changed the law. They changed the law that if you want to run as a Republican or a Democrat, you can wait till the last minute and file. If you want to run as an independent, though, you can no longer do it, because they changed the law to where you have to collect a bunch of signatures and bring those signatures with you. So you have to collect. Really, if you decide right now that you want to run as an independent, it's probably too late.
And so,
unless you want to run.
You think that's a direct result because you ran as an independent and you were competitive?
Well, not just me. I mean, there were a bunch of people running every time. It was, the numbers were like 20 people would file as an independent, 11 people would file as an independent, and then they made these laws, and it's gone down to 1 or 2 every year would run for the legislature as an independent. So if they wanted to have a chilling effect to prevent people from running as independents, they appear to have accomplished their goal with that law. Only one small problem. The legislature had tried moving the date up before, and it had been ruled unconstitutional before several times. Mm-hmm. Now, that did not stop them, because they're playing this game where as soon as the federal judges, they throw out the unconstitutional early date, restore equality to the ballot, and then as soon as the judges are not looking, they just move the date up again. So, and that's the one thing, Paul, I've learned a lot in this process. It is not a small thing for a man of, a regular person like me. You want to take on the state, and you want to take on the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're very determined to fight and defend this law. And so it has been a real learning experience with me, how hard and how long, and this has been going on 4 years, and the judge, he has given us a heads up. He will find the law unconstitutional. And basically the first time, there were 3 parts to the case. Did I have standing? And of course, they attacked my standing all the way to the Supreme Court and back. And the other part was I actually harmed? Because I filed for lieutenant governor, and I want to keep my options open to file again for lieutenant governor or some statewide office. And the judge ruled, okay, that's real harm because they've changed this law. Because, all I wanted to do was the right to do the same thing I had done the previous election cycle.
Yeah.
Decide the last minute whether I want to run, just like people in the clubs can do. So, and then, of course, the Secretary of State's office, one of the painful things about this for me is that the Secretary of State and I, this has been awkward for us. He's been put in a very difficult position of defending ballot access laws that are difficult to defend. They didn't make the laws, but they were following the laws. And Paul, they defended them in court. I recognize the hard work they've done. I've been one of the most enthusiastic supporters of them in the past. When I thought they've been attacked unfairly, I would say so publicly. But for the last 4 years, I have been battling in court over their enforcement of a deadline for independence, which had repeatedly been ruled unconstitutional. And they waged this battle in a very determined manner all the way to the Supreme Court and back. I don't want to say right here on the radio to the whole state, to God and everybody, I'm thankful for the support and understanding of my wife throughout this struggle. This is not something that most women would appreciate their husbands spending a lot of time and money on, but no matter how outgunned I was, she never wavered. So, I've learned what the better half means in the last 4 years. But the bottom line is they have a conflict, and they handle the conflict differently than I would have. The legislature has put them in this position. They take an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arkansas.
Yeah.
What do you do when the laws of the state of Arkansas are not constitutional? Now, the way they handled that conflict was you just back the laws of the state of Arkansas to the hilt. And that's an easy choice to make when everybody's a Republican or a Democrat. But, if it was me, I would do it differently. I would balance whether or not that law was constitutional. I believe in a system of checks and balances. That's why I think we need independence, because right now everything is, Asa Hutchinson, he is the governor. He's Republican. The legislators are Republicans. Basically, there's no checks and balances. So I think the executive branch, like the Secretary of State, could advise the legislature, you know what, these laws you're sending me, they're not constitutional. I'm going to recommend we not even challenge. I think that should be a possibility in a situation where this law has been ruled unconstitutional several times before. And
they just do it again. So it's ruled unconstitutional several times before, and so they make a law that they don't just pass an identical law. It had to be a little different.
It's pretty much an identical law.
Really? Wow.
As far as the date being moved up, yeah, it was pretty much identical. The court rulings say you cannot go earlier than May, and they still put it in the 1st of March when the signatures were due. So, it was pretty much, and that's the one thing I've gone through this process, and I wonder about that. It's almost like they cheat you, and the judge slaps their hand, but he doesn't. There's no. I wonder what the deterrent is. I wonder what will keep them from doing it again the next time. And and the judge has given us a heads up, so he is going to declare the law unconstitutional, and I just don't know the scope of the relief, Paul. Is it only going to apply to me, or is it going to apply to anybody? If it applies narrowly to me, like take an office like lieutenant governor, do I want to run for lieutenant governor as an independent and know senators can run for lieutenant governor as an independent, even though, that the lieutenant governor deals with the Senate a lot.
Yeah.
So to me, it impacts the decision. I really wasn't. I'm doing it because I want to keep my options open, but really, I want to keep everybody's options open. It's not really about me.
Do you look okay? So let's assume it's the best case scenario, and not only does he rule that it's unconstitutional, but he rules not just in your favor, but it affects everybody who wants to file at the last minute as an independent candidate, and not, as you said, one of the clubs. Do you expect the parties to get together? I love what you said. That quote at the beginning: bipartisan. Could just mean a larger deception than normal is being planned. Do you expect them to try to thwart the prospects of an independent being able to file in some other way?
Well, now they already have. They already have, Paul. So, I call on the legislature and listen. They may have done the wrong thing repeatedly in the past, but I believe in repentance. I believe in forgiveness, and I call on the legislature to change the law, which the judge is going to find unconstitutional at the first opportunity to do so, which is really the fiscal session, because with a supermajority vote, they can take up non-fiscal issues.
Yes.
So, and really, I asked the judge probably not listening, but, I hope the relief is written so that it doesn't just apply to me. If anybody turns in their signatures, because what the state was arguing was, well, just apply it to Mark if you really have to apply it, because what if somebody's already collecting signatures and they turn it in early and you move the date back? Well, I say have a broad view. If they turn in the signatures when they file, that's fine. If they wait till May 1st to turn in the signatures, that's fine too. And that can be done. But, quit putting the Secretary of State in a position of trying to defend laws which have previously been declared unconstitutional on multiple occasions. I think that's the minimum the state legislature can do. But I also ask them to be proactive, Paul, because they need to change the other ballot access laws they've added since 2012, which are of dubious constitutionality. Don't even wait until the state becomes subject to a suit over them. Change the laws that you put in after 2012 to make it harder for independents. I'll give an example. Arkansas Code 77103B, it requires independent candidates and independent candidates only to sign a vague independent petition affidavit. Now, Paul, judges and prosecutors often collect signatures for ballot access, but they are not required to sign a similar affidavit. Party candidates, of course, they don't collect signatures, so they don't have to sign such an affidavit either. The law puts independent candidates, and them alone, in the position of having to swear to a statement that they often cannot possibly be sure is true. Like if I run for lieutenant governor, I'm going to have help collecting 10,000 signatures. So I don't know everything in that affidavit is true. I might unknowingly make a false statement. And this is the kicker, and it makes me wonder if they didn't plan it out this way. Under the recently passed so-called ethics amendment, making a false statement related to elections is punishable by, hold on, you ready? A lifetime ban from public office.
Wow.
There's no exception for unknowingly making such a statement. So if I sign a statement, yep, all the signatures were collected within the dates.
Hang on, and that was in the new ethics law by now indicted Senator John Woods?
Yes, it was a deceptively named ethics law, which was dishonest in its title, sponsored by a man who has now been indicted for taking bribes. And in it first, the law sets up a situation where independents and independents alone have to sign this vague affidavit. And then the ethics amendment subjects them to a lifetime ban if it's later found out they unknowingly made a false statement.
Wow.
Now, this is going to have a chilling effect on people running for public office as independents.
Yeah.
I mean, in particular, with the big offices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was that a part of their intentions? I don't know. If it was,
of course. I mean, come on. I mean, I'll go out on a limb with you for sure. I'll say it is. And you know what's interesting? That same ethics amendment that we all were tricked into vote. Well, I wasn't tricked into voting for it, but a lot of people were. I talked to people who said, well, I saw term limits, and I thought that was a good thing, and it was deceptively written. But, it also gave them the power to go back and amend certain things about that particular law. And one of the things they amended was that if you're a public official and you make a mistake on your campaign finance reports, which people have done, and let's say it's, let's say it is pretty cut and dry that this is, nefarious, as long
you're busted,
as long as you go back and correct it in 30 days, okay, as long as you go back and correct it in 30 days, then you're good with the Ethics Commission.
Yeah, you caught me stealing, but if I can just pay it back in 30 days,
I'm good
really,
to go.
You can't even.
I'm good to go. That's another thing that was in that quote ethics end quote amendment.
Right. I would like. It was a terrible amendment. It was a trap, like Admiral Akbar says. It's a trap. But basically, the bottom line is that, like independent candidates, judges, party candidates, they can know that they will get on the ballot, because the judges can go either way. They can collect signatures, or they can pay a filing fee equal to 6% of the annual salary of the office. They don't pay it to a party; they pay it directly to the state.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of judges don't do it that way, and of course, party candidates they just pay a fee. So the only ones it is not available to under Arkansas law is independent candidates.
Yeah, it's just not right. It's absolutely not right. And we're out of time, Mark, but I'll give you the last word. I can't wait to have you back on once the judge actually hands his ruling down.
People, what the circuit court's decided in this case is already being used all around the country. Yeah, I'm on pins and needles. I want to know. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Mr. Mark Moore, check out the website, folks. It's arneighbors.org. That's arneighbors.org. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Good morning. Back in a moment.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to TripleRPawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's TripleRPawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, TripleRPawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal.
Ethics.
Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Speaking of draining the swamp, last hour we mentioned in a whole segment on Governor Asa Hutchinson, his election year pivot, saying no special election or no special session to raise your internet sales tax, no special session to create a brand new tax on the people of Arkansas to take more revenue from you. No. I have a primary opponent. We talked about that last hour. I got a delayed text message coming in from an internet business owner. We talked about all of the phony, bogus arguments about how an internet sales tax would save brick and mortar businesses by giving more money to the government. It's going to somehow save brick and mortar businesses. Doesn't make any sense. But we have somebody else writing in, Joe, adding to the argument. Missing the competition point. The reason that I get things cheaper online is that I don't have to pay for a salesperson or storefront. It makes things cheaper, and I don't want to pay for that expense. There you go. That's a very, very good point. So, just adding a little bit more to the discussion there. Folks, I'm going to do a recap. Coming up when we come back from break, I'm going to do a recap of everything you missed, the reporting on Friday, if you did miss on our Johnny Cash Friday report about what happened last Thursday at the joint budget hearing, where they were debating whether or not to accept Governor Asa Hutchinson's recommendation in the Department of Health, the appropriation, how much money that they're going to be authorized to spend. Some conservatives tried to make tweaks. They didn't have the votes. Then some others tried to pass the budget as is. They didn't have the votes, so they just gave up, did a voice vote, passed it out anyway. It was an exercise in... just frustration. But it exposes the process down there is being one that protects the status quo. I'll give you the audio and everything you missed next.
$1,000 that was stolen. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Really?
Senator's going to be prosecuted, in my opinion. I guess the FBI can do what they want to, but they're still looking at it. Not only did Jake Files do that, he took $80,000 from Michael Morton's associate, David Norsworthy,
Yep.
in my opinion, to attack our Seventh Amendment rights and to put a price tag on the value of human life. That's what they call tort reform, this most recent. It just seems like there's an attack on anything that holds government accountable. That is FOIA and our right to trial by jury are both under attack.
Yeah.
Things that our founders knew, between transparency, the right to trial by jury. I mean, look, our founders wrote about the right to trial by jury in the Declaration of Independence, and they knew how important that was to hold the king accountable. And now we've got special interests in Little Rock cutting deals with legislators to set a $500,000 price tag on the value of human life. That's just.
Last question: are you surprised that the Republican Party of Arkansas and Asa Hutchinson himself have not asked for Jake Files to resign? I mean, he's still the chair of the Revenue and Taxation Committee.
Well, yes. I mean, I've been very vocal about that he has lost trust. I can't. He's my state senator. I can't call him. He won't return my phone calls because he knows I'm going to ask him tough questions. And we're effectively disenfranchised. Of course, they want to play their games, and they've got Matt Pitch all in the wings out here, ready to take his position. The morning that Jake Files said he wasn't running again, Matt Pitch announced.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you guys are the city of Fort Smith, that district, it's really at a disadvantage because the fiscal session's coming up, and you guys really, because he hasn't resigned, you guys are disenfranchised. You know what I mean? A guy, if you go down the list, the financial troubles that he has alone, the potential political vulnerability, everything he would advocate for could easily be tied back to the situation he's in. And so it's just it's really sad for the citizens of Fort Smith not to have adequate representation right now. So
it really is.
All right. Anyway, Joey McCutcheon, Fort Smith attorney, I appreciate it very much, sir. And we will do it again soon, okay?
I appreciate you having me on. Have a great day, Paul.
All right. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
You have a great day, great weekend, folks. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in just a moment.
Animosity.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Oh, yeah. I just need you to do some calculations real quick. Welcome back, folks. All right, so, Joe, we haven't done this. I have been reporting all last week on Governor Asa Hutchinson's spending and how he is a big spender. He keeps increasing. Matter of fact, it's now becoming very popular on the internet when you spell Asa's name to use a $sign in place of the S. And people do it on the Facebook feed all the time. You're seeing it on Twitter. It's becoming popular. We even have our nice little cartoon up right here for our of Asa Hutchinson's face and with the $sign. So add these numbers up for me, Joe. These are round numbers. Let's go 130 million. Just 130, then 140, 160, 170. And how much is that? Oh, really? That's 600 even. So we can say, because it's really 133 million. He increased spending his first year. Now I think the second year was 140, maybe 141, 142. The third year was 160 something. And so now with this, the fourth year being 172, those are the headlines last week. So we're over. So since he has been governor, he has increased spending over $1 billion or over $500 million.
Yeah, you could probably guesstimate it to be around 610 to 615.
Yeah. So he's increased spending $610 billion. And so ask yourself, and he's going to claim a $150 million tax cut? He cut your taxes. $50 million of it went to people who'd pay no taxes because it's the lowest income bracket. And then the $100 million went, but that's like nothing. That's nothing. I mean, you tell me, did government shrink or grow if you increase spending by $600 million and you cut taxes by $150 million? I mean, if you really take the tax increase as a cut, I mean, we're now in serious trouble here. We don't have the money to cut taxes if you have somebody that continues to spend more and more each year. Very, very, very frustrating. So based on that, and I think people are starting to figure this out, that the Republican Party platform the last 3 years here in Arkansas, for the most part, from the executive branch, has been ignored for the most part. Okay, a lot of people, have said before, Paul, you never give Asa credit for anything. Okay, well, I'll give him credit for defunding Planned Parenthood of the Heartland. Okay, but what conservative has a problem? I mean, that's like the bare minimum, low-hanging fruit. Yes, we believe in life. Yes, we believe that you shouldn't. I mean, is that really the highest standard? Oh, we agree that we shouldn't murder innocent babies. That's pretty much an easy one, right? That's like 2 + 2. All right, that's it. I can't tell you how many people will come up to me sometimes and they'll say, "Hey, Paul, I want to run for office. What do you think?" And I'm like, "All right, well, what are your policies?" She's like, "Well, I'm pro-life." And I'm just like, "Well, yeah, me too. I wouldn't vote for someone who's not pro-life." Next. And I'm one of these guys that I completely agree with, the concept of trying to save as many innocent babies as we can. That's why I am all for passing whatever law that gets challenged in whatever court and fighting it all the way, because we have no other option, because this is a war. The issue of life is a war, because in war, it's life or death. That's what war is, and that's what we're fighting here. And we have no other options aside from passing laws that are pro-life and fighting them out in the courts. That's all we got. We're trying to save as many lives as we can here, okay? So I get that. But next, what else you got? I mean, you understand how unpopular abortion is in the state of Arkansas? But what about your philosophy on the size of government? I mean, and that's really, folks, look, when government grows, liberty shrinks, period. It's just the way it is. So on that, last Thursday, there was a big debate on whether or not to approve Governor Asa Hutchinson's recommendation. He was asked, the bureaucrats were asked how much money, in the case of the Department of Health, how much money they spent last year in this one area. And they said, well, $12 million. We spent $12 million last year. And, okay, well, how much did you ask for? Well, we asked for an additional spending authority of $16 million. If the money is there, we'd like to be able to spend $16 million in excess on these other things, and this is what we, have laid out. And the bureaucrat testified that they asked for $16 million instead of $12, but they were given $30 million in appropriations. So this prompted Jim Dotson and Representative Deanne Vaught. Representative Dotson and Representative Vaught said, I'd like to make a motion that we reduce spending by $3 million. And then I think Dotson came on and he said, I'd like to make a motion, piggyback on that we reduce spending by $20 million, making it like $23 million, because this is ridiculous. And it was, there was a lot of other areas. And so they took a voice vote, and there's some confusion. Let's actually pick up. Here's State Representative Doug House. Joe, can you get Doug House? No. Yeah, on the audio, yeah. We want the first Doug House quote, the one that's in the print there, not in my chicken scratch. So get that queued up, because this is what he said. This is what they were actually attempting to do. And it took a lot longer. They didn't have a quorum of senators there. They weren't showing up. So they didn't have votes to pass anything. The House members were there, but the senators were not. You ready for this? Here's State Representative Doug House on last Thursday at this budget debacle.
That was my question. Okay. Representative House. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since I've heard at least two people say they don't understand what's going on, I'll just make the statement. Three people that say they don't understand what's going on. I'll make the statement. I am going to vote for Representative Dodson's amended motion, which basically piggybacks onto the amended motion previous to that. It cuts the authority to spend money. They're saying, okay, last year we spent X number of dollars, but this year we want permission to spend X plus Y if we get Y. We are saying no. If you get some extra money, you don't get to spend it on what you want to. We will decide as a body where that money needs to be spent, not carte blanche to spend it on that particular program.
That sounds conservative.
For instance, smoking cessation. Representative Lowry had a real good example. Representative Douglas had another good example with the county operations. That money many times can be moved to more T-shirts if that's going to stop people from smoking, or it can be moved to county operations where they can deal with making sure
Can you stop for a second?
community...
He's making some good points about what the process is, but can we talk about for a second that we're still funding a smoking cessation hotline? Does that not sound ridiculous to anybody? Am I the only one? I think that's ridiculous. And I don't know what it is. They tried to defund it last year, and people threw a fit. And I think we did a bit. Did we do a bit where we called the smoking cessation hotline to leave a message or something? I can't remember. I know we called Asa's hotline when he was like, Asa launched this My Ideas Arkansas. Do you have ideas for government efficiency? And so, like, we called, and the nice lady at DFNA took down our suggestions. You could call or do the online thing or whatever. But I'm pretty sure I called that smoking cessation hotline because I just wanted to see what was it about. And I think we talked to somebody. Didn't we talk to somebody who they had an accent, didn't they?
I don't remember exactly, but I think you called.
I can't remember.
I think you called earlier in the day before the show started and recorded it.
I know. I think we did it live. I think it was like at 4 o'clock because I remember. I don't know. Anyway, the bottom line is we're still funding this thing, and it doesn't make any sense. Everybody knows that smoking's bad for you, and the people that choose to, smoke now are very well aware of the risks. Not to mention, it's like one of the most demonized groups in America. Is if you're a smoker, then you basically are, the worms of our society. If you listen to these, that you're not worthy of anything. This is what they've done to smokers. Everybody knows you're not supposed to smoke. People do it anyway. Arkansas still has a ton of people that do it, and that's what's driving people nuts. Anyway, we shouldn't be funding this thing. All right, keep going with Representative Doug House here.
He's vaccinated or not, or hiring temporary help. But by not cutting it, we're telling the health department, you can spend this money up to $1 gazillion, X plus Y plus Z, which is really our authority to tell them we want it spent on county operations. We're taking away the discretion that they have to spend any extra money they might get on those particular programs.
Good.
And the questions that were propounded to them are, you spent X number last year, why do you need X plus Y plus Z? And they didn't give you any answers. When you ask how many people quit smoking, 1 or 2,000, wait a minute, 1 or 2,000, which one is it?
All right,
they
stop.
Don't know.
So he does a very good job. Next, cue up, back up. I want to hear Democrat Joyce Elliott, Joe. Democrat Joyce Elliott. Okay. This is the budget hearings before the fiscal session. This is where we're supposed to decide how much money we're spending. It's a healthy discussion to have. And you know what the Democrats did? Democrat Joyce Elliott, who's a very nice woman, by the way, very friendly. Always been very friendly anytime I've had any interaction with her. She defends the executive recommendation. The Democrats are defending ASA's recommendation. and they're basically criticizing people that are trying to cut spending or potential spending. Listen.
I just want to remind us that we went through this whole process in depth in the regular session where we should have gone through the process and had all these discussions. And just a reminder that the point of this fiscal session is simply to do a review to see if there's anything very untoward or something that is pressing for us to have to make changes. And we're making changes here based on appropriations. And I just would like us not to be in a position, unless there is some compelling reason to do so, to change in a few days what we took an entire session to make sure we put in place. And there's something to be said for remembering the point of the fiscal session. And it's not to come in here and by minute issue redo the budget.
Stop.
That is
now, that is news to me, but that's Democrat Joyce Elliott, Senator Elliott, saying the point of the fiscal session is not to come in here and look at the minutia of our spending. I just, well, you know what? The comment speaks for itself. I think most Arkansans think that that's exactly what they should be doing, is to not just, kowtowing to whatever the governor wants, to actually provide a check on his power. Specifically, this is the main reason we elect people in the first place, and that's how to spend the money that they forcibly take from us. So it's kind of a big deal. So they go through the motion. All right, let's go to Jim Dotson. Let's go to Jim Dotson closing for his motion. So this would be the second Jim Dotson clip. You got that? Yeah. Do you have that? Yeah. Okay. So here's Jim Dotson closing for his motion to reduce spending by like $20 million. They almost didn't let him do it. It was a big deal, but I'm not going to get into that. We did all that on Friday. You got it, Joe? Go for it.
Yes, for immediate. So we are going to do immediate consideration. No, we're not going to do.
Yeah, this is it.
That's right. I'm confused. Now we're going back to discussion. So we now have Representative Dotson. Are you ready? I think does anybody feel like they need to talk before Representative Dotson closes? Representative Dotson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. I think it's important to keep in mind as we're looking at this, that this is the reason that we're here, budget hearings, if not for the purpose of going through, sharpening our pencil and looking at the budget. That's our legislative role and responsibility, is asking the questions, but if we don't ever make any changes to the numbers that were presented, why are we here? And so, as far as the budgeting process is concerned, we've asked questions of the agency, and the motion that I've made and Representative Bott's made has been based largely off the testimony of the agency in front of us.
That's exactly right.
And so if you'll go through the motion, or I'll go through the motion line by line.
All right, stop. So he goes through the motion line by line. State Representative Dotson makes some great points, basically saying, to what Senator Joyce Elliott said, no, this is why we're here, okay? And by the way, I think we should just leave it up to everybody's, let's leave it up to each individual legislator to define why they are there, because each individual legislator has individual constituents that elect them. So I think Jim Dotson feels like his constituents think, no, this is why we are here, to try to get into the minutia of how we spend the money. Okay, so they try to take a vote, a voice vote, a recorded vote. They divide the House and the Senate vote, and there's not enough people in the room. They don't have a quorum of the Senate, so they don't have enough votes to pass the amended appropriation, the motion which would have reduced potential spending. So instead, they take a vote to reduce, to just adopt what ASA wants. But again, they don't have a quorum, so they do a voice, or they do a recorded vote, and they don't have enough people there, and so that fails. So that leads, let's get the last Douglas House, State Representative Douglas House again. He says, you know what? We don't have a quorum, so we can't pass anything. And so what they do is they hold a voice vote, and they pass it without a quorum, and just give the governor what he wants. I've never seen anything like this. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, sir. We're going to vote against it. Here's why. We're not going to get what we want because you don't have enough votes on the Senate side. It's time to pass a motion out at all to get the bill drafted. I accept defeat on this point, which is a majority of people in here are trying to cut the budget. There are not enough votes to cut the budget, therefore I'm going to vote for executive rec, in which case the budget gets drafted and we'll fight this battle another day. That's why we'll vote against it. And let's move on because it's,
Thank you.
All right, stop.
Thank you,
So they don't have the votes, so they go ahead and they just do the vote. Can we get the last, the voice vote? This is what the voice vote sounded like. If you're curious, this is how things work at the Marble Palace in Little Rock. Take a listen.
Okay, it just saves staff some work, but it'll be fine. All right, so the motion is that we do legislative rep. Is that right? All right, we haven't split the vote. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes have it. All right, members, thank you for your work.
What an exercise in democracy. Folks, you're listening to Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Good morning. Back in a minute.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
Bob Baloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who is deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so on our coverage of the budget disaster, the hearings last week, we've got Mark on Facebook writing, shouldn't that tape go to the ethics or the AG for investigation? I mean, passing it without a quorum, it's very interesting. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know. See, and the reason I'm hesitant to say that anything, actually legally was, violated here is because what they'll say is, for example, in a House committee, it takes 11 votes, 11 recorded votes out of 20 to pass something out of a committee, okay? But they'll say, well, that's only if there's a recorded vote. If it's a voice vote, it's just whatever the chair hears. So you could have, you could have less than 11 people in the room, and they could pass something out. And they say, well, that's perfectly fine. So I'm assuming that would be their same argument here. Now, I think it's a travesty of accountability and the idea of us knowing how you vote. We have Sean. Sean on Facebook writes, if these people are not going to go to work and do their job by voting on things, why do we need them? If I don't go to work, I either don't get paid or eventually don't have a job anymore. What makes them any different? Well, the intricacies of the Marble Palace. We don't understand. We're the common folk, Sean. We're the common folk. Yeah, we're the sheeple. Once they get down there in their little bubble, they don't have to do the things the way we're in. We're the serfs. We're the working class. It's by the way, that place, that building down there is so beautiful. It's extremely easy when you walk in there to feel like you're somebody. I mean, even if you're not an elected official, you walk in there and you feel, oh, wow, I'm at the Capitol. Can you imagine I'm just telling you, that's the human condition down there. Can you imagine if you actually get elected? I mean, that to me, it puts into a completely different category, completely different perspective, what kind of person that you really need down there. You have to have somebody who is aware of the pitfalls and that they are right around the corner. They are that the temptation is a constant down there. And in order to do that, in order to do it right, you have to have a certain level of humility that, if we're honest with ourselves, is hard that's hard to imagine. A candidate with humility, but also wants to run for office, which is not a very humble thing to do, to put your names on signs and plaster them all over town, which guarantees that the people that want to control us are more likely to rule over us. It's an uphill battle for limited. That's why government needs to be limited, because of our ability to screw up, and we screw up a lot. Folks, I'll see you tomorrow.